In 2003, deep within the dense forests near Seattle, Washington, a group of hikers stumbled upon something they would never forget. It was late spring, and the air carried the scent of damp earth and pine needles. Among them was Sarah Miller, a young college student who had joined her friends for an afternoon hike through the Cascade Mountains. As they trekked along a winding trail, one of the hikers noticed something unusual: a small wooden cross partially buried under leaves. Curious, Sarah knelt down to examine it more closely. Etched into the wood were faint letters spelling out GRK. She dismissed it as some kind of prank or memorial left by another visitor. But as she stood up, she felt a chill run down her spine. The others laughed it off, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. The group continued deeper into the forest, following a narrow path that led to a secluded clearing. There, they found remnants of what appeared to be an old campsite: charred logs from a fire pit, scraps of fabric tangled in the underbrush, and a rusted tin can half buried in the dirt. One of the guys joked about how creepy it looked, but no one lingered there for long. It wasn't until later that night, after sharing photos online, that Sarah discovered the truth behind their discovery. A news article popped up on her screen. Green River Killer convicted. Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, had confessed to murdering dozens of women in the Pacific Northwest during the 1980s and 1990s. Many of his victims' bodies had been dumped in remote wooded areas, just like the one they'd visited. What Sarah didn't know at the time was that one of those victims, Carmen Turchin, had been buried mere feet away from where they stood. Her remains were recovered months later during a police investigation spurred by tips from hikers who reported finding strange artifacts in the woods. Carmen's final resting place had been marked with a crude wooden cross bearing Ridgway's initials. Sarah often wonders if the eerie sensation she felt that day was Carmen trying to tell them something, or perhaps warning them to leave before it was too late. On October 31st, 2011, 4 friends decided to celebrate Halloween with a camping trip in the Black Hills National Forest of South Dakota. They chose a spot near an area locals called Devil's Den, a jagged rock formation shrouded in folklore. According to legend, Native American tribes believed the rocks were cursed, serving as a gateway between worlds. Few dared to venture close, let alone spend the night nearby. Despite warnings from park rangers, the group set up camp at the base of the rocks. As darkness fell, strange noises began echoing through the trees, low growls, snapping twigs, and distant whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. At first, they laughed it off, attributing the sounds to wildlife or wind rustling through the pines. But as the hours passed, the noises grew louder and more unsettling. Around midnight, one of the friends, Jake, claimed he saw movement among the shadows. He grabbed his flashlight and ventured toward the rocks to investigate. His friends heard him call out, then nothing. Panicked, they searched for him, but found only footprints leading into the thick brush. When they returned to their tent, they realized their phones had no signal, leaving them completely isolated. Hours later, Jake reappeared, stumbling back to camp covered in mud and scratches. He muttered incoherently about eyes watching and something pulling at him. Before anyone could question him further, all hell broke loose. A deafening roar shook the forest, followed by branches snapping violently overhead. The group scattered, running blindly through the darkness as unseen forces pursued them. Only 2 survived to tell the tale. Both were hospitalized with severe trauma and hypothermia. Investigators later discovered Jake's body mutilated beyond recognition, though no predator matched the wounds inflicted. To this day, Devil's Den remains off-limits to visitors, its reputation cemented as one of the most haunted places in America. In July 2015, three sisters, Emily, Lily, and Grace Carter, set out on a backpacking adventure in the Pisgah National Forest of North Carolina. Experienced hikers, they planned a multi-day trek through the Blue Ridge Mountains, documenting their journey with photos and videos for their social media followers. Their last post showed them smiling beside a picturesque waterfall, promising updates soon. When the sisters failed to return home after 5 days, authorities launched a massive search operation involving helicopters, K-9 units, and volunteer search parties. Despite combing every inch of the designated trail, no trace of the Carters was found. Their gear, including tents, food supplies, and cameras, remained untouched at their last known campsite. Weeks turned into months, and hope began to fade. Then in early December, a deer hunter stumbled across something chilling. A single boot wedged beneath a fallen log miles away from the sisters' intended route. Inside the boot was a handwritten note scrawled on a torn piece of paper. "We're lost. Something's following us. Stay together. Don't look back." Further searches uncovered additional clues: a blood-stained scarf, fragments of clothing caught on thorns, but no bodies. Some theorized the sisters had fallen victim to foul play, while others whispered of supernatural forces lurking in the ancient woods. Locals spoke of the Roanoke Curse, a centuries-old hex said to claim anyone foolish enough to wander too far into the wilderness. To this day, the fate of Emily, Lily, and Grace remains a mystery. Periodically, people report hearing faint cries for help emanating from the forest depths, though none have ever been able to locate the source. For many, the case serves as a grim reminder of the dangers hidden within America's untamed landscapes, and the mysteries that may forever remain unsolved. In October 2016, two brothers, Ryan and Eric Blackburn, ventured into the forest near Burkittsville to investigate claims of paranormal activity reported by locals. Armed with cameras and recording equipment, they hoped to capture proof of the legendary entity said to haunt the area. However, neither brother returned from their expedition. Weeks later, a hunter stumbled upon a rusted cooler buried beneath leaves along a rarely traveled trail. Inside, he discovered a series of VHS tapes containing grainy footage shot by the brothers. The recordings depicted escalating terror, strange whispers heard in the darkness, shadowy figures moving just out of sight, and disorienting sounds that seemed to defy logic. At one point, Ryan can be heard screaming, "We're not alone," before the camera cuts off abruptly. Authorities conducted a thorough investigation but found no trace of the brothers. Some believe they became victims of the same malevolent force that inspired earlier Blair Witch stories, while skeptics argue the tapes were staged hoaxes meant to capitalize on the region's notoriety. Regardless, the chilling authenticity of the recovered footage continues to fuel debate and fear among those who dare enter the Black Hills Forest. In 2015, a group of friends decided to go camping in the dense woods of northern Minnesota, near the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. One member of the group, Sarah, later recounted her terrifying experience. Sarah and her friends arrived at their campsite late in the afternoon. They set up tents, built a fire, and enjoyed dinner under the stars. As night fell, they noticed something strange. The forest seemed unusually quiet. No crickets chirped, no owls hooted, and no wind rustled the leaves. It was an eerie silence. Around midnight, Sarah woke up to what she described as whispering. At first, she thought it might be one of her friends talking in their sleep, but when she checked, everyone else was still asleep. The whispers grew louder, coming from all directions, yet unintelligible. She couldn't make out any words, only faint murmurs that sounded like voices speaking in unison. Terrified, Sarah tried to wake her friends, but none of them stirred. She grabbed her flashlight and stepped outside the tent. The whispering intensified, surrounding her completely. She shone the light into the darkness, hoping to see some source of the sound, but there was nothing. Just trees and shadows. Suddenly, she saw movement out of the corner of her eye. Turning quickly, she caught sight of a figure standing among the trees, about 50 feet away. It wasn't human. Its body was too thin, its limbs elongated, and its face obscured by shadow. Panicked, Sarah ran back into the tent and zipped it shut. The whispering continued outside, growing louder until it felt like it was right next to her. Hours passed before the noise finally faded away. In the morning, Sarah's friends claimed they hadn't heard anything unusual, though they admitted feeling restless throughout the night. To this day, Sarah refuses to return to that forest.